Welcome back to another bonus episode of the Cousin Cecil Show, where it's Wednesday. So you know what that means. It's New Comic Book Day. So that means I am here with another comic book creator interview. And this week I got a pretty cool one that his book that he co-created for Scout Comics by the Horn has just got kind of like the green light to become an ongoing series through them. And I'm just more happy to have him come on. Please welcome Markisan Naso. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks. It was more like kind of like how I just kind of tiptoed into it. More congratulations, because last time I checked, this was just obviously kind of brand new news that obviously By the Horns got picked up to be kind of like an ongoing series. Like, and what was like what was supposed to be the final book issue?
Well, originally it was 6 issues. Yeah. But then I added a 7th issue because actually originally when I first conceived the idea for it, it was going to be 7 issues. But we cut it back to 6 because Jason, we didn't know how the book was going to do. And Jason needs to do some paid work. You know, he has to take a break usually and do some of that and then come back to the comics. But I had a dream for that 7th issue that I knew I wanted to do. And I basically wrote that in my dreams, and I told Jason about it and said we have to add a 7th issue. And once I told him what it was about, he was all on board. And then, you know, we kept sending each other messages about stories that we wanted to tell for By the Horns, texting each other, emailing each other, and just had so many different ideas for this book and how it could continue. And so we just talked to Scout about that, and they really wanted us to continue the book. And so we decided that we were going to do that, but we wanted to add another issue on top of that. So we brought the first arc to 8 so we could seed some of the other things that we want to do that we talked about that maybe we didn't really, we didn't make it prominent in the original arc, you know, because we didn't know that we were going to have all that extra space to be able to put new material, new stories in.
Right. And then obviously I jumped the gun on it a little bit. Let's take a step back for the listeners. And of course, let's describe what is By the Horn, like obviously like the elevator pitch of the series.
Right. Well, By the Horns is basically The Last Unicorn meets Kill Bill. So it's a sci-fi fantasy action series about a hunter named Elodie. And she wants to kill all the unicorns on the continent of Salathis for trampling her husband. The problem is that it's impossible to find unicorns. So Elodie just starts murdering anything out there with a horn in frustration. And unfortunately for her, all that monster hunting affects her standing at the farming village of Wayfarer, where she lives. And she gets exiled for neglecting to help the community. So she sets out with her friend, Sajin, who's this telepathic half-wolf, half-deer. And they try to make one last go at tracking down unicorns and getting revenge. But they end up discovering that there's an even greater threat to the world out there than unicorns. So the series is really about, I mean, it's about stabbing horned monsters, but it's also about a woman who feels like all she has left in her life is this revenge. And she has to decide what's more important to her, just getting back at unicorns or, you know, standing up for the larger community and stopping this massive looming threat to the continent.
Okay. That also explains a lot more to, you then have a pretty good first issue. Cause I ain't gonna lie. I was been fortunate enough to read from 2 on. I've been able to read 2, 3, and 4. And I'm like, I've been reading it and I'm like, yeah, this is really good. And I'm like, this last issue, without spoiling it for the listeners, because it's pretty recent, but there was that little conversation in the hot tub, or like in the hot springs.
Hot springs, yeah.
And then she did like that. I'm like, that's some serious talk for them just hanging out. And like, no way, we're not going to be friends. I'm like, oh, okay. But now that explains it more. And no, yes, By the Horns, of course, like you said, it's a medieval fantasy with a little also tech, because one of my favorite characters you have is that Evelyn, the floating eyeball with the gun.
Right. Yeah.
I think also a sucker for it because Evelyn is my daughter's first name.
Oh, nice.
So yes, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then, but no, it's been catching on. And then I didn't have time the past couple episodes of the regular show to review episode or issue 4, but it's going to get a 4 out of 5 on next week. Like, you know, by the time recording has published. But no, it's been really strong. The series has been very strong for, like, you did basically explain how I've been reading it to myself without that one issue's step. Like, oh, it is basically, that explains a lot about, like, the Kill Bill reference. I'm like, oh, and then I didn't even catch on yet about, like, she's killing everything with a horn. I'm like, oh, that's very interesting.
Well, have you read the first issue since?
Not yet. So I ain't gonna lie. This is one thing about Scout. I wish Scout Comics had their digital comics on Comixology, because I like having it all in one little, pool of digitalness.
Well, it's happening. It's taking a little time, but the titles will be on Comixology at some point. So hopefully soon.
That spoiler. You're probably the only one of the few creators of Scout that knows that yet, because I've had talks with other ones who are like, I hope it comes soon. But yes, but no.
Mm-hmm.
How about also, let's also get into you. What got you into comics? How did you, obviously I'm assuming like a lot, you probably read them when you're growing up, but also like what leads you to the path to get into writing?
Well, I've been a writer all my life. I went to school for writing. And of course I grew up loving comic books. But I really didn't start writing comic books until my late 30s. I guess I went to this comic book convention called Morrison Con. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it was a Comic-Con for Grant Morrison, and it was set in Las Vegas, and they had all these creators who were there as well, like Jason Aaron. And the cool thing about that con is it wasn't like a traditional con where you would go and you hear the news about upcoming comics and sit in sessions. It was more about the creative process behind comic books. You got to hang out with the creators and play games with them and, ask them questions and have more of an intimate setting for a comic book convention. I haven't really seen many of these. There's just that one, and there was another one called Fabletown and Beyond, which was also really good. So what I liked about that is it really encouraged a community of people who were interested in creating things, not just comic books, but any kind of art. And in fact, there was a comic book, an anthology that came out of that convention. I did not contribute to it, but just the fact that people got together and decided that they wanted to try to make a go at creating comic books kind of inspired me to get off my ass and just work on some of these stories that have been bubbling in my head for years and years. You kind of get trapped in that routine life and working, and you don't always try to do the things you'd really like to do.
Yeah.
So, so I had a bunch of stories, and my friend Jason, who draws By the Horns, and he also did Voracious, our previous book. He was a guy I met, like, I don't know, now it's probably like 15 years ago. He was working at a comic book store, and he was an artist. And he went to school. I didn't see him for another 10 years, but a friend of ours had started up this comic book and wanted me to help him write it. And so I worked on that a little bit with him and this other guy, but having 3 writers on it was too many writers, and I kind of bailed on that project. It's like, it's your idea, you can do it. If you need some advice or whatever, I'm happy to give you input, but I think I'm going to try to do my own thing. But in the process, he had sent some of what we worked on to Jason, who had graduated from art school. And so when that project fell through, I contacted Jason because I saw his stuff and it looked so good. And I just said, hey, you want to get some beers? I have some ideas for comics. Maybe we can work on something together. And that's how we came to do Voracious. So that was our first book, and we got that in Action Lab, and that was a pretty good success for us. We got to do 3 volumes of that, and do a complete story, which is unusual for new creators. And now we got the new book, By the Horns. So it's been a really cool ride. I didn't think that I would do this much with comics, but I'm really excited about it. Really jazzed that I get to be in this industry and get all these stories out that are in my head.
I'm glad. I'm also, that's kind of cool to hear another, like, it's like you had a really decent success story in the sense of, like, you did one book, but you got to do the full story, and then we're looking at the tea leaves in my eyes of By the Horns, where hey, we're gonna let you be ongoing. So assuming then you can, get a full story off this second book and be like 2 for 2. That's really excellent to have under your belt off the get, in your starting of the career stuff. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, it's great because we pitched Voracious as a long form story, which you probably shouldn't do when you're getting into comics. You should stick to short things, miniseries, 3-4 issues. But we were a little bit more ambitious, and we didn't know if we were going to be able to do more. And fortunately, people kept picking up the book, and Action Lab gave us the green light. And it's kind of the same thing with By the Horns, except this one I kind of tailored it to be a miniseries. Of course, I have other ideas for it, but I wanted to just tell the one story and not have to worry about what comes afterwards, and not have to worry about would we be able to do it.
Yeah.
But fortunately, By the Horns has been a great seller for Scout, and people seem to really dig it. And yeah, I feel like we're just getting a lot more buzz for this book than we ever did for Voracious. So I'm really happy that we get to go on. We've got about maybe 4 or 5 arcs for this book.
Nice.
And now that we have the extra issue in the first arc, the first volume, you'll see that there's a lot more seeds planted for stories down the road. So,
oh, excellent. No, it is definitely how do I word it? It's one of the more enjoyable, like, that fantasy world that I have read in a while. It's not, how would I word it? Fantasy is not even that much my bag, but By the Horns, for some reason, maybe it's just, I'm gonna lie, it goes pretty fast. We're going into action into this boss, and then another little thing happens at the end that we're going into the next issue, and it's been really a fun ride. And like, how you probably written it, like, you've written like all the little sidekicks all are great, and they all have their own little personalities, or like, especially without even, like, you have, obviously she is working with 2 of her probably not so ever she ever imagined her working together with, but obviously 2 of the last unicorns. It was very interesting to see their like yin and yang of, like, being friends, but also like Dumb and Dumber. So, like, has been pretty enjoyable about that. And then just more also, so with that Grant Morrison thing, would you say Grant Morrison's probably like your favorite writer that you look up to?
No, actually, I really wanted to go to that convention. I like Grant Morrison a lot. I wouldn't say he's my favorite writer. My favorite writer was Warren Ellis, but then all this stuff came up about him, and women, and just being a despicable human being. And so it's been hard for me to deal with that, because that guy was such a sentimental, not an influence, but really made me adore comics for a long time.
Right.
The first writer, and the writer that I always kind of look to, is Peter David. When he was working on the Hulk years ago, and his Aquaman run, Supergirl, I love his stories, his sense of drama but humor. I love the mix, the interplay that he puts in all of his work. And he's doing the Maestro now, and that's been a great 2 miniseries. So that guy's been I would say him and Garth Ennis is really a big writer for me. But yeah.
No, that's good. And then that's cool to hear, because, like, a friend of mine just picked up that Maestro. I haven't got to read it yet, but no, I just more curious. And then also I was looking through your Twitter, and obviously you also, for a person how I just read that, you said you kind of just said it. You took a little bit to get into comics because of, obviously, lives and stuff, but then also I do see that you're running a record label, like with that broken.
Yep. Yeah. Skull Fracture Records. So when we were doing By the Horns, when I do comic books, when I did Voracious, I didn't know if it was going to be the only comic book I ever did.
Right.
So we put a lot into that book. We did signings at butcher shops. We had recipes in every single issue. We had restaurants contribute to that. You know, we made aprons. I mean, we tried to do a lot of different cool, fun things for the book because we wanted to kind of make it an event. And obviously we were at a smaller publisher, and now
right.
Scout's a little bit bigger. But with By the Horns, I also want to do that too, because to me, it's like a celebration. I get to do a comic. I get to do another comic. I want to make it big. I want to make a big splash, and I want to do everything I can, because who knows? It could be the last one I ever do.
Right.
So for that, I wanted to do a soundtrack. I love metal, and I have a lot of friends who play music and metal bands, because I'm on the Metalheads podcast.
I was good. I was going to get to that. I was going to say, like, for a person, how you just said that, you're like, oh yeah, I do those little things. Oh, when I write a book, I also start a record little thing so I can make a soundtrack. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I really wanted to do a soundtrack, and I never see metal for soundtracks. I don't count the Dark Knight Batman thing, because there's no metal actually on that soundtrack. So I never see metal, and I never see songs that are actually written for a comic book. So the two songs that we have on the 45 that we put out for By the Horns with Arctic Sleep, they're written specifically for the comic book.
Are they on Spotify, those two songs?
I'm not sure if they're on Spotify. They're on Bandcamp, which is my preferred platform, because
I can go on there too.
Bandcamp's way better. Spotify just is terrible to artists. Bandcamp is a lot better to artists. They give them the bulk of the funds made. And
I'm sorry, I'm a noob. I don't know that much about that.
Yeah, I'm schooling you, man.
Schooling you.
And Bandcamp actually has higher quality files too, so you can get FLAC and lossless files, which is a lot better if you're an audio file than Spotify. So it could be up there. I'm not sure if Keith D, who is the mastermind behind Arctic Sleep, he may have put it up there, but I don't really go on Spotify that much. But so we did the soundtrack, and I wanted to press it on vinyl because I just want to do something special with it, and it comes with a limited edition comic book. And so I just decided I was going to make a record label, for it as well. So we did that release, and then I put out another release for another one of my projects. I wrote a prose story for this anthology called Apex, World of Dinosaurs. And so Ashen Horde, which is a progressive black metal band, did a theme song for the lead character in that story, and then they had a B-side that we put on with a little mini album, like an EP, and then I put out a cassette tape for that one. You animal, because I was going to ask you then, before you got into Apex the Dinosaur, I was going to say, what brings metal and fantasy world together, and like these weird shaking hands of, like, I always think of, like, there's always those we go back into like more heavy, like, 70s heavy metal, so you have, like, Led Zeppelin and talking about like the Hobbit and stuff, but like what brings that metal feeling? And some people always sometimes they involve the elves lore and all that stuff into the fantasy of the metal. Where does that come from? Do you know? I mean, I think that metal in fantasy and that kind of medieval stuff works well together because metal music is just so epic. It's just so sweeping. You have a lot of heavy parts, but metal just has so many different changes, tempo changes, feelings, emotions in it. It can be some of the most beautiful music you've ever heard. It kind of evokes these kind of vistas of fantasy landscapes, and it's tough as hell. So what do you think of? Like, when you think of metal, you put it on, it's like Conan the Barbarian or, Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
So I think, and also I think metal it's not mainstream, well, people think of certain bands as being metal that aren't really metal. But if you're really a metalhead, the stuff that I listen to, like, it's not in the mainstream. People don't know about that stuff. So I think there's a sense of like, when I used to play D&D, I was young, that was something you were kind of in the outskirts, of society. It wasn't something that everybody did.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're a skater, you're into heavy music. You know, it's not the popular thing to do. And I think some of those kind of genres that maybe didn't always get their due in the mainstream is another part of what makes up a good metal tune and why metal kind of works so well with it.
What's your favorite subgenre of metal? Because I know there's many different genres of metal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little torn. I love death metal a lot. Death metal is probably my favorite, but I'm into so many different kinds. Progressive metal, doom metal. I really like doom a lot. So, yeah, and black metal. Black metal has been something that's really come to the forefront for me in the last, I don't know, maybe 5 years or so, because I feel like there's more put into it now than just straight black metal of the old school style. You know, there's just a lot more color and variation in it that I like. But I would say that's true for most metal subgenres. But
I grew up in the weird age where I had not weird, I'd correct how I say it, but I was listening to Fear Factory, and I was into the skating thing, and I was more of a Bam Margera fan, so which leads you into him, but also he also had those mixed sample tapes. So of course I got into Cradle of Filth, and I don't want to say their names, but Dimmu Borgir or something. The other Scandinavian metal, if you want to call it like that, I guess would be the genre. But no, I'm not. It's just been so long, and when you have kids in the house and you're trying to they didn't hear it before, you're like, whoa. That's
yeah, I mean, it's not for everybody, you know. People always ask me about it now because they know I'm so into metal and they want to try it. So it's interesting because I'll give recommendations, but there's so many different kinds of metal. Like this band here, Ex Imperatus, death metal, all growled vocals, really deep, just heavy guitars. So people aren't going to be into that band, but there's a lot of bands that have sung vocals, and some of the best vocalists in the world are in metal. And so you can get behind that, especially doom.
Can you give anybody just a recommendation for an entry level, not mainstream metal, but yeah, one of these either death or black metal? Can you give somebody here, listen to X artist? Can you give us a recommendation?
There's a new album that just came out. I love this band. The band's called Unrequited, and the album's called Beautiful Ghosts. And it's black metal, but it's breathtakingly gorgeous. It's transcendent. It's it's kind of like if somebody stabbed you with a spectral blade in your heart, and then it rooted and grew into flowers inside you. That's what it sounds like to me. And but it's just beautiful. It has these orchestra arrangements to it, and a lot of it's almost even instrumental, or the vocals, which they're growled or shrieked, but they're in the background almost. So it's almost like another instrument. I mean, a voice is another instrument, but it kind of blends more into the music. So I think that's something that people might like if they like something with a real emotional quality, like an orchestral quality to it. I think that's great.
I do enjoy your voice. Is very smooth and calm and collected, and you're talking about when you stab a dagger into your heart and it plants a beautiful bouquet, and I'm like, oh wow, smooth.
Yeah, I'm known for doing that on the Metalheads podcast, just kind of describing things in lush ways. So I would say another band I really like, and they have a new album coming out this year, is Chemmis, Khemmis. And they do doom metal, but it has a rock feel to it in some places. But it's definitely metal. Most of the vocals are sung, and the singer Phil he's just a terrific singer. They do have some growled parts in it, but mostly it's sung vocals, and it just has it's very emotionally uplifting in a lot of places. Yeah. It can be ugly and dirty with the guitars, but a lot of it just sends my heart soaring in those songs. And I can't wait for the new album, because I feel like every single album they do, it touches me a little bit more. That one always puts me through all the emotions, that band. I think they're just really good at capturing. That's what I like a lot about metal, because people think it's always about just aggression, and that's not the case. So yeah, Chemist is a really great band.
I'm going to tag you later when that comes out, because when you said that's, I think, my thing. I like the metal, of course, all the instruments, but I do like that sung lyrics because of just my ear. I don't mind growling at some spots, but like, when the whole thing's growling, I'm like, I want to know what you're saying to me so much better, so I can feel it. So when I hear sung with some growl, I'm like, okay, I might get into the Chemist.
Try a band you might like is Black Sites. Sites, Black Sites, 2 words. All their vocals are sung. It's metal and rock combined. It's very aggressive and melodic. But I think that one's a good transition band, I would say. If you like a hard rock and you're looking to try some metal, that's a band I would recommend. Black Sites.
I'll look into that too. Because what is it? I like how this curved into just talking about music. I like that. I like but it's what's the word? I do enjoy. There was a moment in time before I moved down here. There was a radio station. It's a, long story short, it's like a Christian radio station, but Christian rock bands, there's a lot that have been coming out of there that has like metal influences. Have been really doing really good jobs. Maybe they're more I don't even know the words. They're probably more alt rock more than anything. But like there were some really enjoyment ones. I can't remember off the top of my head. There was one off the get go, but no, I was just more even like for people who listen. Like you can even go from they might call it black metal, but like it's all through the whole spectrum. Everybody does it. It's really really cool to see that. That's also another thing. Maybe it's me being more included into pop culture that is the pop and hip hop. So like it's really I've been feeling a little stagnant on rock music lately, because I don't have like, I guess your site, you said something so perfectly. But I'd like a dagger that turns into a bouquet in my heart right now of music. So I'm like, man, that sounds really good. So I need to get into. Maybe I have to switch my listening service. Get off Spotify, go to Bandcamp. Maybe that's where the secret's at.
Yeah, I mean, most metal bands are on there. I mean, I think they might be on Spotify too, but yeah, Bandcamp. I'm all about supporting artists, and Bandcamp's the best way to do that. They've been doing this thing called Bandcamp Friday too. So I believe it's the first. Maybe I can't remember if it's the first or last Friday of every month. I think it might be the first Friday of every month. All the sales go to the labels and the artists. So I've been buying a ton of stuff on there, and we get a lot of free music, but I still buy a ton because of the metalheads. We get promos all the time for bands and stuff, because we do a lot of interviews and that. But yeah, Bandcamp's wonderful. I think it's just a great music service. But yeah, people say rock is dead, and I'm like, yeah, because you don't listen to metal. If you listen to metal, you know that it's not. Like, guitar-based music is definitely not dead. There's a lot of great bands. They're just not in the mainstream. They're just not popular. But there's some of the best and most creative music I've ever heard is coming out right now.
I need to get back into my roots of that. But back into the actual, because you kind of said it, as a person who was able to enjoy your books because of Scout giving them to me very nicely, I'm going to do what you said. I'm also going to go order the books, or at least I need to at least get issue 1. And then I'm probably wait for this trade, because I think it'll be the easier way through it, because I know Scout. Well, no, I have plenty of time. I can get issue 1 through 4, then just have my local comic shop order the rest. But we'll get back into the comics side of it. Okay. If you got to pick like what character would you like to have the opportunity to do judging by how you write, how about like a 10 issue arc? on from any of the either from the big two or like like, you know what I mean? Is there do you like the superhero side of comics, or you kind of stick to more the indie side of the comics?
I like both. I mean, I don't have I'm not like a lot of other writers who have the ambitions to write superhero comics, I guess.
You're not the only one, because I've talked to others that said I don't even want to touch any of those things. I mean, I get it.
I mean, I have a Thor story because I love Thor. Oh yeah. And I could do that. I don't even need to do it for Thor. But I have a really good Thor story. And I tend to like the street heroes a lot. Thor's not, obviously, but I like Moon Knight. I really love Moon Knight a lot. Batman. Daredevil's my favorite superhero character. So, but I don't have right now, I don't have like a burning desire to write those characters at all. I like playing them in my own worlds. Not that I wouldn't, but yeah. So I don't have like a 10 issue arc. I love sci-fi too, so maybe something like Silver Surfer would be really fun. I tend to write more sci-fi. I've noticed that. So I'm working on pitches for some other companies now, and almost all my stuff is sci-fi with a little bit of horror in there as well. Oh, there is one character I would love to write, Man-Thing. Man-Thing's pretty metal. So I would do that. You don't see enough of the monsters. No, you know? I guess there's a Swamp Thing series coming out right now that Ram V is doing.
Yeah, it's killing it right now. It's been a really good read. I've been enjoying that one too.
Man-Thing, I always liked that character. I like the weirder characters too. So that would be fun to do, especially because there's not that much done with that character. Like you go into a Daredevil, I mean, there's so much been done with Daredevil, and most of the Daredevil stories have been great. So that, I think it's hard to come in and put your stamp on it. Not that you can't come up with a really good storyline, but to make it your own and really stand out. So I would like to tool around with some of the characters who are lesser known or have less stories if I was going to do that.
Right. And then also I was just wondering if was there anything during this setup or the pitch moments of By the Horns that maybe was changed, like don't have to be just about Evelyn, but like Evelyn was a floating eyeball with tendons. Was she always that? Was there somebody else that was something like a different character style that was changed during the setup?
Well, that's interesting. No, Evelyn was always the floating eyeball with the tentacles. Yeah, that never changed. None of the characters. The only thing that really changed, I would say, is that when Jason and I first started talking about By the Horns and I pitched him the concept for it, it was a straight fantasy book. And we finished up Voracious and we came back to it and decided we want to work on it. I changed the story to incorporate technology into it because I just like that. I like to give it a little bit of extras, this like worn technology just thrown in there to the mix where it's not overt. It's not like the dominant form. Like we're mostly medieval, but there's these splatterings of technology. And I just like that. I thought it gave it a little bit of a different feel than what I had seen with some other fantasy books. Of course, that's been done before, but so that changed a lot. And I think because of that, some of the writing changes, I had to incorporate some of that technology, but it helped a lot because it gave me some other ideas that I would not have had the opportunity to do in the book with characters and the world. And even the wizards and stuff, because they're all based on ancient wind gods from different mythologies.
Yeah,
and that was always the case. But when Jason originally drew them, they were based on those old myths. But then when I brought the technology to the book, Jason wanted to do the redesign, and so you can see like Futon in the second issue, the first wizard that they fight. He's got the mechanical arms and. So I just love that mix. I think Jason really liked it too. He actually doesn't like drawing technology that much. He wanted to get away from that and do fantasy. So, but he's so good at it.
Now you got to do a little push. You knew what's best for him. You knew what's best as a friend. You got to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he had a fun time coming up with those designs because he gets to incorporate something you might not have seen before in there instead of just doing a straight fantasy book. So, but the characters themselves, yeah, they haven't changed. None of them are really changed from in my head. I always knew that they were going to be in there from the beginning. And, some new characters, you won't see them until like the second arc or maybe towards the end. These kind of developed because we knew it was going to be an ongoing. I've been thinking about it for a while, but then once Scout decided they wanted to make the book an ongoing, then starting to flesh out some of these other characters that are going to come into the book. That's pretty fun. So they weren't there from the very beginning, but
right. That will even because I want to touch base on that part because that's what brought I want to talk to them about this because like everybody I've talked to is Ozzy. They either have like, yeah, we're set up for we're only doing one arc, like just so like then they got the green light. We're going to get to do volume 2, but yours is obviously an ongoing of volume 1. And you got the green light to just continue it and keep going. You said it was set up for 7 issues. It was approved, and then now the ongoing got you 8, and then obviously more and more. But did that change? So is issue 8 the pivot into ongoing, or like did any of the framework have to get changed because now you're switching to ongoing? That's maybe might have affected issue 6. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, that's why we added the extra issue. So we kind of extended the first arc. So we were going to tell the story through, it's now 8 issues for the first arc.
Yeah.
It's going to be 6, then it was 7, now it's 8. So we kind of expanded it a little bit. Cause when you're a newer creator and you have a mini series, you don't know if it's going to be successful. Right. So sometimes, there's a tendency to compress it, because you want to get everything in. And so it's nice to be able to not do that as much, kind of like build it out a little bit. So I could make the finale a little bit more bombastic than originally planned. Yeah. And again, like I just felt like I wanted to seed a couple more things, a couple more subplots so that it would take us into the second arc. There's already some, when I write, everything matters in my books. So when you see issue 5, when that comes out, you're going to probably want to read the first 4 issues because stuff comes up from those. I don't really waste space in my comic books. So, and even the choices that I make of why characters do what they do, there's like a reason for it. Yeah. So it's nice to be able to build that out a little bit more, show a little bit more with some of the characters in it. And, issue 6 was, I think it's the best issue I've written, and it's all a flashback issue. So that's kind of nice to be able to do that. That was something that like I said before, I pitched to Jason because I just felt like we had to do it. It was just necessary to the arc. This is before the ongoing was announced, and he agreed. And so it changed a little bit because we get to flesh out some more of the story and the characters, and I think just build a better big finale in issue 8. So issue 8 will come out, and then a couple months after that, the trade's going to drop with 1 through 8 in the trade. And then a couple months after that, we'll be back with issue 9. And we could have launched with another number 1, but I prefer to just keep going. Yeah. And I mean, my goal would be to have the longest running Scout series ever. That'd
be great. That'd be cool because I think that's definitely that's what these independent creators want. Why would you want to do another issue 1 where you can say, no, I have a series that went up to issue 50.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, for new creators, it's just hard to do that.
Oh, no. I'm just talking about even by the horns or even you just said, because that's where also the conversation, I'm more happy to get you on and we talk about a positive thing. That's where we get into the small creators that even had the okay to do 10 issues, and then they were like, sorry, we had to cancel it by 8. So can you wrap it up at the 8 issue? I'm like, oof. So I'm just more happy to hear the opposite. So that you went from issue 8, we actually get to sprout out more story into this fantasy world and lore. So that's awesome to hear. But yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's really cool, and I'm excited about it, and I'm having a blast just coming up with new stories. And Jason always texts me, and he likes to send me scenarios or environments that he wants to draw, because he really likes to make different scenes. He likes to take the characters to different places. So he always asks me if I can incorporate certain things in the book, and I usually do. I usually can, if it fits with the story, or if I can make it fit in a way that's seamless, then I try to incorporate that.
No, and I'm more happy to hear, even like you said, like issue 6 is one of your favorite ones to write at this first volume, because that's another question. I'm like, oh, what's your favorite one to write, and what was your favorite one to read? Do you actually have is there another issue in the first volume that you actually prefer, like you really love to read or see, compared to how you said 6 was your favorite one?
I mean, I like the action-oriented issues. I really like because I get to see Jason Andre just really explode with that. So Jason's drawing issue 8 right now, and I think that's probably going to be my favorite one to read, because it ends everything.
Yes.
I spent a lot of time on that script. I wrote it like 6 times, and it has just tremendous action sequences in it. And Jason's doing some really cool layouts that he's never tried before. So I think that one is going to be the one I want to read the most. It's not finished yet. I've seen all the thumbnails for it, because Jason will draw out the rough sketches for it, and then I look at them, and we make any adjustments before he goes in to actually draw the whole issue. But like issue 2, I love the fight scene in there. I love 4 has a really great fight scene, just came out, especially because of Andre's colors in there. Like Jason's artwork's amazing, but Andre doing the nighttime with all the fire everywhere, just really cool. And I think we do a lot of unique things, like ripping off the horns of the unicorns and forging weapons. Like I don't think that's ever been done. You mentioned Evelyn having the gun, so I never seen a floating eyeball with a gun before.
Right.
So I think we just do a lot of cool, fun fantasy elements for action. And so I like to see that out on the page.
Right.
Now,
yeah.
I mean, all our issues have action in them, but some of the bigger ones I really like. I really like seeing those.
That is definitely your guys' thing of, like, when people say by the horns. No, you guys do like these very out of left field things. Like, yeah, we're gonna be able to take the horns off the unicorns and make a shield weapon, or the 2 flowing, like, daggers to throw in, all that stuff. It was it's very fun reading. I think you also hit on the head, because we can also give them all the shout outs, because I think I have them all right here. I'm more impressed to see that Jason does the lettering also and the design, because I mean, I've heard some recent ones, but be able to say, yeah, Jason does the art and does the lettering for the book is taking two jobs at once. I'm like, whew.
Yeah, no, it's a big responsibility, but it just came out of necessity, because it's expensive to make books. So when we're doing Voracious, we could have hired a letterer, but we have to hire the colorist, because people don't realize, like, some of these smaller publishers, you pay for everything up front. Maybe you make something on the back end, but we didn't really make anything on Voracious except for like at conventions and stuff like that. Now with Scout, it's a lot different. We are seeing some returns on that, which is great, but we have to still pay Andre up front for all the colors. Yeah. So Jason's like, I think I could try doing lettering. So I actually ended up buying Jason a book on lettering, and he studied it, and I think he's done a great job with the lettering. But there's still things that there's rules for lettering that we didn't realize, back in the day, and we still kind of we're still figuring that out. I think we almost have it all down, but Jason's gotten really good at the lettering. It's a lot of work for him. It's really a lot of work for him. And he can do a monthly book, but then he has to do the lettering, and we always put extra elements into our books too. And a lot of that's more work on Jason's end. Like, for example, if you notice, our logo changes every issue. So it has the two
Yes.
different creatures on it. Everything goes you. No one else does that. That's like another extra element that we just want to put in our book because we love it so much. We want to give you something more. We always have back matter in the books, you know, and we have a whole map in the very front since the beginning. And so we put a lot of design work and just thought into what we're doing to try to make the best book we possibly can. So a lot of that heavy lifting is Jason's.
You're working on like a dead horse. Like, because I'm looking at it right now. Because I ain't gonna lie, like for listeners, I'm away from this camera, which they ain't gonna even see the camera. But just seeing the difference of lettering, because you said, what are some of the things that you guys have found out being you guys' own letterers?
Well, doing By the Horns, we didn't realize that for I's, there's crossbars on I's when it's like the personal pronoun I. So like I, I'm, I've. You put the crossbars on, but you don't put crossbars on I on everything else. Okay, so most lettering, everything's in capital letters, right?
Yes.
You don't have to do that. You know, you can do lowercase, but most is all in capitals. So yeah. So an I in something like live, the word live would have no crossbars on it. And it's not something I don't think most people would notice, you know, unless you're a letterer or you're in the industry, I guess. But, you know, we didn't even realize it. So that's something we had to correct and, you know, to go back and do the editing. So,
one thing I do see as a person I read a lot. So I've been noticing nothing with you guys, but I am interested in understanding why some some words get highlighted. Like for this one in particular, like one says, this will protect us from lava. And like obviously this one is darker than the rest of it. And like on the other one says like, oh, they're your horns. So I'm assuming that just more to show, I guess, you know what I mean?
It emphasizes the word.
Yes.
Like when you're talking, you emphasize a particular word. So, if it's bold like that, it just means that she's emphasizing that in her speech. So it's the way you read it. It affects the way you read it, you know? They're your horns. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's where, okay, that even makes it more easier. No, I just like to hear that stuff because I do like that little tricks of the trade information too. But no, you know, I think that's probably it about just more. I guess, is there anything you could possibly tease either for the end of volume 1 or even like, maybe like the little snippet, breadcrumbs for volume 2? Of course, you don't have to spoil, but you know, like what is something, we're going to get into as a person who will say this, like, hey, issue 4 is out. Here's some more things you can find out about.
Well, issue 5 is a really big issue. Yeah, there's a lot of plot twists in that one. So like I said, you know, the issues before it kind of matter. So I think that if you think that we were like playing it safe or we were going to go on a specific trajectory, you'll see that might not be the case. And then issue 6 is the flashback. So you're going to get to see what actually happened with Elodie and her husband Shintaro. And you're going to get a backstory for Seijin. So for people who are wondering about that, you're going to get that story in one issue. It's a self-contained issue. It's almost like a 0 issue, to be honest with you. So I'm really, really proud of that particular issue. And because you've seen Elodie's nightmares about what happened to Shintaro. But as we know with nightmares, you know, it's not always completely accurate. You know, it's a dream. You're thinking about what you wanted to happen or what you imagine being the worst possible thing that could have happened. So what actually happened? You'll find that out in 6. And then we just build towards the big finale. And all I can say is issue 8 is huge. It's extra pages. And Jason's going to do some of the best. I already think he's one of the best artists in comics, but I think when he finally finishes that issue, some of the action sequences in that are just going to hopefully blow people away. And really happy with how the story ends up. So if you haven't read the first issue,
no,
but the very first page, the very first issue, it's going to come back to that, which is one of the unicorns lying in a field talking about his impending death. And you're going to see it's going to come right back to that.
I gotta get him. I gotta go to scoutcomics.com, which will be in our thread of this issue or this episode and all that fun jazz, and go to your local comic shops. But also, yes, By the Horns. It's been congratulations again to becoming an ongoing series with Scout. Hopefully it is the longest ongoing series for Scout. And then, like we said, we'll just do shout outs. Of course, we had Markisan Naso story and direction. Jason Murr, who's working like a dog, being the artist, letterer, and also, co-creator. and then you said colorist and effects is by Andrade Tabacaro.
Andre Tabacaro.
But yes, thank you for coming on the show. It's been fun. I also do enjoy talking even just about comics and metal. It's always fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and then would you mind telling the people your social medias, and we can get out of
sure.
here?
Yeah, I mean, my website's markisan.com. It's Markisan. And I'm Darth San on Twitter and Darth Markisan on Instagram. If you want to stay in the know about By the Horns, you can follow us on social media for that. And the handle is By the Horns Comic on all the platforms. So Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can listen to the Metalheads podcast on your favorite podcast app. Or just go to metalheadspodcast.com to play the episodes. I've also written some features there with interviews. I do a series called 10 Horns that people can check out. And then last but not least, you can check out my record label, Skull Fracture Records, at skullfracturerecords.com. There's vinyl soundtrack for By the Horns. We've sold out of the orange vinyl, but we still have blue and purple vinyl. On a 45, it comes with a limited edition first print comic book. And yeah, it's been really fun.
That comes with issue 1?
Yes.
Okay. Just curious. That's not going to say anything on air, but no, I'm just curious. I might look at it.
You don't have issue 1. That's a great way to do it. It does come with a download code too. So even if you can't spin vinyl, be a cool collector's item. And you can, download the album in FLAC or MP3. So you get both the great files, and you can get it on my website, and I offer signed versions, or you can go to Skull Fracture Records and pick it up there. So I sign everything for free. So,
all right, and there you have it. And then, well, we don't do it as every show, but we're gonna put our horns up and say, be good to each other, and I'll see you next week. Peace.